and outbreaks has updated the market on the cases.
Yes, that's right. This concerns Estia Health. They're a listed aged care firm. They're saying that 13 residents have tested positive to COVID-19. This is at their Ardea facility in West Melbourne. Now, they also say 2 staff have tested positive. They haven't specified which aged care centres those staff have tested positive at. So earlier this morning, though, in a market update, Estia said no residents have tested positive. Now, this market update included goodwill write-downs for the company of up to $148 million because of the cost of COVID-19. It's yet another big company that is counting the cost of the coronavirus outbreak. So now Estia Health saying it's activated its COVID-19 response plan. It's working with the Victorian and Commonwealth Department health authorities to try and stem this outbreak, Karina.
Yeah, it's very concerning. So the Fair Work Ombudsman is seeing more companies reporting underpayments?
Yes, this comes on the back of that huge scandal with Woolworths. They had admitted to underpaying workers to the tune of $400 million. ABC has also had a big underpayment issue, which has now been resolved. Now the Fair Work Ombudsman, they're announcing their strategy for the upcoming year. They're saying they've seen big companies, about 60 big companies have come forward to report workplace law breaches over the past 18 months, $500 million owed to workers. Also, the Ombudsman says the number of employers and employees seeking assistance has increased significantly. Now, it's also saying it's seeing allegations of law breaches in regards to the job seeker wage subsidy. The workplace regulator, though, saying it's enforcing the laws in what it's called a proportionate manner. That's to take into account the pressure COVID-19 is putting on restaurants, cafes and contractors. It says it will take into account the financial position of a business and its viability before deciding to take legal action for serious law breaches. So unfortunately, that doesn't sound too good if some cases of underpayment or other law breaches are overlooked for workers.
How are markets looking? Yeah,
it's been a pretty good day. I'm very confident because firstly, second quarter earnings season is coming up, and also some more good news on a coronavirus treatment drug out of the US on Friday. Of course, though, more studies are needed. Let's have a look now. The ASX 200 up 40 points. So it has lost the gains from this morning, still up about 0.7%, rose about 1.5% earlier. More than half the sectors are higher, led by utilities, banks and miners. We're seeing Fortescue Metals jump to a record high. That's because of a rise in iron ore prices. Going down today, tech, telcos and healthcare stocks. Looking at the movers, so big sell-off for Estia Health, down more than 4% after that revelation that 2 staff and 13 residents have tested positive for coronavirus. Sezzle, the buy now, pay later firm, has jumped up 15%. It's sold $79 million worth of shares to big investors. Going down, Dacian Gold, gold miner, saying it saw flat gold production from March to June, and it's lowered its production forecast for the year. Oil Search also going down. It's written off some Papua New Guinea exploration licenses to the tune of up to $400 million US. And Star Entertainment, that runs Sydney's Star Casino, now it's higher, even though it says that a patron has tested positive to coronavirus. The reason it's higher is because the Queensland government has decided to abandon plans for a second Gold Coast licence, which would have rivalled Star's casino up in Queensland. Looking at Asia, also a good day on Asian markets because of that optimism, particularly about second quarter earnings in the US and that coronavirus drug treatment news. The Nikkei up 427 points. The Hang Seng and the Shanghai market have gained in China. Now, that new data about the antiviral drug remdesivir boosted Wall Street. The Dow Jones Index rose 369 points. The S&P 500 put on 1%, boosted by banks. And we saw the NASDAQ rise to another record closing high. Some disappointing economic data, though. Producer prices fell in June and the services sector pulled back. And the Australian dollar had a slow start, but having a good day now. Buying around 69.7 US cents. It's higher against other major currencies. And that's finance.
The top stories on ABC News: an extra 1,000 Defence Force personnel will be deployed to Victoria to help bolster the state's coronavirus response. The state has recorded 177 new cases. One is a returned traveller in hotel quarantine. 25 are connected to identified outbreaks, and 151 cases are under investigation. Some students in the state have returned to school, while thousands of others remain in lockdown. A patron who attended Sydney's Star Casino has tested positive for coronavirus. In a statement, its operators say the customer was at the venue on the evening of Saturday the 4th of July. Star Entertainment Group says the casino is subject to a comprehensive daily clean and has not been shut down. A baby has died in a house fire in the Macarthur region southwest of Sydney. The girl's body was found inside the Bargo property after fire crews were called. Police say a heater may have caused the fire. And the Federal Treasurer, Josh Frydenberg, has conceded the unemployment rate is much higher than official figures suggest and is likely above 13%. It comes as the second round of the government's coronavirus cash payments start being paid to people on income support. Well, let's get the latest coronavirus figures now. Here's ABC analyst Casey Briggs.
Yeah, g'day, Karina. We've got another big number out of Victoria, although quite a bit smaller than the last couple of days where we saw cases in the sort of 200s. We're now back down to 177 in a day. So that's a good thing. The one big caveat on this is there's no one chart or statistic that gives you the full picture of what's going on in Victoria or any state for that matter. The number of tests done in Victoria was substantially down in these 3 days. And when you look at the number of positive test results as a proportion of all of the tests done in the state, well, it's a little bit better than yesterday, but not a lot better. So what we're seeing is sort of a figure in line with previous days when you compare it to the number of tests done. Having said that, hopefully we do now start to see the impact of the stay-at-home orders in Melbourne and really starting to have an impact in the next few days, flattening this curve, which is obviously a fair bit bigger than that one. But the sad thing is we are now seeing the tragic, in many cases, results of what happens when the numbers get this big. The number of people in hospital in Victoria is just on a very steep trajectory, 72 now and counting. We're seeing big numbers, so expect those this chart to continue to increase because, of course, when people don't go into hospital upon being diagnosed, there is a lag. It takes a bit of time for the people that are going to see their conditions deteriorate for that actually to happen. The other consequence of seeing big numbers at the moment is we now have a really, really long list of clusters in vulnerable populations being managed. I won't go through the whole list, but we've got public housing, we've got Altaqua College, 144 cases there, and then a long list of aged care facilities. Menarok, 23 cases there. That is the biggest aged care cluster that Victoria has seen to date. 13 in Glendale, a handful, a bit more than a handful really, where there's 1 or 2 cases. Lots of hospitals as well, and then a lot of workplaces where it's difficult to socially distance and you know, you can't work from home if you work in an abattoir, and we're seeing cases crop up there where we have seen big clusters before. There are also more than 843 at last count, but it's probably more than 900 now, cases still under investigation. A big backlog of those that may well end up being linked to clusters here or go into the community transmission category, which is perhaps even more concerning because we don't know where those cases have come from. I expect that as those cases get investigated, we might find more difficult clusters cropping up.
So, Casey, those are the clusters in Victoria. In the cluster in southwest Sydney that's associated with the Crossroads Hotel, there are 13 cases linked to that. Just how concerning is that cluster?
Yep, and we should remember that just a few weeks ago there was just one in this list as well, the Keilor family outbreak in Melbourne. Let's just have a look at New South Wales curve for a second. 14 new cases today. This is the first day in a very long time we haven't had a majority of cases from New South Wales being in hotel quarantine. 8 of these 14 are linked to that Crossroads Hotel outbreak. That means there are 13 cases that have been linked, including people, most of them people have been to that venue all on the 3rd of July, but then a series of close contacts of them as well. this is potentially a big problem. This is probably New South Wales' biggest challenge in dealing with the coronavirus since that curve was flattened. To tell you why that is and why I'm saying that, let me just show you all of the cases in New South Wales that were locally acquired. I'll take out all of the cases in hotel quarantine. You still have a big spike there in the first wave, almost nothing for a very long time, and we've seen 10 today. Not very many compared to that big wave, but you've got to start somewhere. Hopefully that's just a blip. Hopefully this one cluster is brought under control before it spreads out into further generations of this virus into other parts of Sydney, particularly in southwest Sydney. That is the big challenge. That is what we need to really deal with. This is a big test in New South Wales Health's coronavirus response to prevent Sydney ending up on the same path that Melbourne is sadly suffering through at the moment.
Yeah, we'll see how it all plays out. Casey Briggs, no doubt we'll talk to you again soon. For more on the outbreak and the implications for Victoria and New South Wales, here's the presenter of the Health Report on RN, Dr. Norman Swan.
There are a lot of outbreaks in Victoria. So this is stretching the system. People are trying, they must be working all hours and really exhausted in Victoria with the testing and particularly the contact tracing and really tying down those outbreaks. I think cumulatively in Victoria there have been 100 outbreaks. It's a lot. They've never really got rid of the virus entirely from Victoria, and now they're dealing with this. The potential, though, in Victoria, if they could get on top of it, is to get to where West Australia, South Australia, Queensland is now, which is elimination of spread. It sounds odd to be saying this, I'm covering it tonight on the 7:30 report, it sounds odd to be talking about getting to elimination of spread, but the economic cost in Victoria is probably zero compared to where you are now, the 6 weeks of lockdown, and it requires a change of frame in mind. So it could go out of control, but it could also get under control, and it's just too early to say. New South Wales, obviously people are scared that this hotel, New South Wales is like Victoria, that they've never really got rid of the virus, and you've got this spread from that hotel, and remember there's a 5 to 10 day delay in what's happening now, so you're really not sure where the virus is, which requires an enormous effort, and it wouldn't take very long for New South Wales to get where Victoria is.
So you've spoken to Helen Clark, who's leading the World Health Organisation's investigation into the outbreak. What did she have to say? Well,
I put it to her that there's a need to get the act together, because one of the failures has been internationally is that countries have been going alone. Australia's gone alone. That's not a criticism of Australia. It's just that every country's done their own thing rather than having international cooperation here. And that is a real problem. It's a real problem when a vaccine comes out, but it's a problem in terms of pandemic response. And only last week, the Chinese reported that swine flu had jumped from pigs into humans yet again with pandemic genes. Therefore, the next pandemic could be just around the corner. And let's see a little bit of that interview.
If there's one thing that really concerns me, it is that if we have another disease like this come along fast on the heels of this, when economies around the world have been literally knocked for six by this, are we in any shape to deal with it at all? So I think it's quite urgent to be learning the lessons from what's happened.
And you can hear more of that interview with Helen Clark on the Health Report on Radio National at 5:30 this afternoon. Norman Swan, thank you.
Thanks, Karina.
A new clinical trial in Australia is aiming to remove the trial and error in prescribing medication for depression. The treatment instead focuses on gene testing to determine the best treatment plan. Dr. Kristen Novak is from the Office of Population Health Genomics at WA Health. She describes how knowing someone's DNA makeup affects what medication they should take.
We know that the way that different medications are processed inside our bodies comes down to the types of enzymes that we have, and the enzymes are coded by the DNA sequence. So if we can look at the particular sequence for the gene that codes for the enzyme of different drugs, we can see whether that person is predicted to respond to that drug, and we call it metabolize that drug in the average way. So it can help us look at the particular dose that someone might be given that would be more likely to be effective, and also whether there's